Hey everybody, how's it going? Again, May has been such a busy month here, May 2024. A lot of people have been first-time offenders, first-time hazing on Drum Talk TV, and here's yet another one, another, I want to say victim, a guest, Nick. Very nice to have you. Oh my gosh, I'm such a fan of your music, and you're on the road right now, and you mentioned in San Juan Capistrano with Mr. Big getting ready to play at the legendary Coach House we were talking before.
Oh, yeah.
Can't believe it's still there. And you said it looks the same.
It's exactly the same.
That's awesome.
Not a single 8x10 on the wall has changed. As you can see, there's some behind me. And they're everywhere around this building on the inside. There's just hundreds, thousands of them. It's crazy.
Growing up in SoCal as well myself, it's been decades since I've been inside there, but for many, many years going back and forth from Vegas to San Diego, LA to San Diego, Ventura to San Diego, always past the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano, legendary location. But let's start with talking about Mr. Big. First question is it true? Are you guys still getting a new bass player? I'm kidding.
I don't think so.
Good. You've got something really cool going on that I'm going to show everybody here in just a second, as soon as I can press the right buttons. There's some new work coming out, which is super cool. This is happening in July. Let's talk about that. Talk about the new album, the process. What can people expect that might be different or lovably the same as what's been put out before?
Well, we recorded it at Sweetwater, where I've been working off and on for a long time.
Yeah.
It is a really cool record. Now, I've been a Mr. Big fan since back in the day, even before I ever played with these guys.
Right.
And this record has a cool vintage bluesy rock thing going with it. It's got, it's got all the playing that you love from Billy and Paul. Eric is singing his ass off, but it just has some grit, that sort of old kind of classic rock grit to it. Sounds great. Cool. Jay Rustin was the producer and mixer, and it's really cool.
How did that feel come about, Nick? Was it more so during the production process, the rehearsal writing process, or how did you guys end up in that little groove there?
Well, Paul kind of was the main steer of the ship, even though Jay was producing and stuff. But Paul and Eric wrote the majority of the material, and it just kind of had that vibe. And just the kind of the way we recorded it, the gear that we used at Sweetwater was, some older stuff.
Oh, cool.
So it just has that sort of grit to it, and it's a lot of great songs.
I think
Mr. Big fans will dig it. A lot of really cool songs, great melodies. There's all the playing you love from Billy and Paul too. So it's fun.
That's great. Did you guys?
And I'm excited about being on a Mr. Big. I'm really honored to be on a Mr. Big record. It's cool.
That is cool. During the recording process, when you say old gear, did you use like old tube amps, things like that?
No. Well, Paul's guitars were done, so whatever he does at his home. Billy uses his normal bass setup, but just it's the way it was recorded through the analog gear.
Cool.
Sweetwater's got everything under the sun gear wise.
Yeah.
In the studios. So it's just, recorded through some old vintage stuff, mic pre's and compressors and all those kinds of things. I used a great Gretsch drum kit and an old Craviotto drum kit, so just had
nice.
The way Jay Rustin mic'd the room was pretty interesting. Putting multiple kick drums in front of the kick drum I was actually playing.
Oh, wow.
Putting microphones on inside those drums and just kind of, so the room would be picked up.
The resonance.
And then kind of mix it all together. So some cool techniques like that too.
Wow. Is there video or photos of the process? That sounds so cool.
Yeah. I made a video on my YouTube channel about doing that at my house, and there's pictures around for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. We'll collect some of that stuff and post it up with the interview. Speaking of Mr. Big, and speaking of new material, and speaking of being on the road, and speaking of gear, we have a short clip that I'll play here of you doing a sound check. Check this out, folks. cool shuffle going on there. You individually, Nick, and or as a band, during the sound check process, other than what the sound engineer front of house is asking for, do you guys ever get creative and just screw around or let stuff spill out, whether it's yourself or with the band?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially because it's usually me and Billy are up there first, and
Uh-huh.
we've had multiple jams. And just I'll start playing something, and he joins in. So that happens quite a bit. A lot of times we play some sort of cover tune. Paul knows probably a million songs. I mean, the guy's brain is incredible. And usually we just let him start something. It could be, you know, Free. It could be Ted Nugent. It could be Van Halen. It could be the Beatles. It could be whatever. And we'll just play something
Cool.
like that during sound check too. So all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome. Do you ever do a cover of Mr. Big during a Mr. Big sound check?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah.
That's cool. Talk about the tour a little bit. You're in San Juan Capistrano, Southern California. What's left on the tour? And are you going outside the US or did you guys already do that?
Yeah. So we've been on the road since January. So we did
Oh, wow.
in January we did the eastern half of the states, like Florida, New York, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of the
Mhm.
Midwest. And then there was a little break in there for me to go on the road with my band Big Big Train and play Cruise to the Edge and a few US dates. And then we did a month in Europe with Mr. Big. And then we just finished a month in South America with Mr. Big. And now we're doing the western sort of part of the US.
Oh,
And
cool.
this goes till June 7th with the
June
final
7th.
show. The final show is going to be, well, not in the West. It's going to be in Buffalo in Billy's hometown. That's the final gig of the US tour.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I'd like to shift gears and talk about something else new that you have going on. A lot. You've been busy. You're a busy guy, and I love that. Let me pull up this beautiful graphic of Big Big Train. Tales of Likes of Us. This comes out, or this was out already March 1st, correct?
Right.
How's that doing? And talk about the new music out of that band.
Well, I was just on a meeting with the band right before connecting with you here, and um, The Likes of Us is one of our best-selling records ever.
Oh, wow.
And it's only been out since March. It's doing really well, and it's also our first record signed to the record company Inside Out.
Yeah,
Before
absolutely.
that, we
Great
had small
prog
labels
label.
on. Yeah, and so it's doing really well for us, and it's the first record with our new singer Alberto,
Yeah.
and it's a very exciting new chapter in the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people are liking the vibe of the record so far.
That's cool. If you don't mind me asking, I know, having going through a tough loss with your
Yeah.
previous vocalist, how was the process after that moving forward as a band and finding a new singer?
I mean, it was really hard. It was obviously, David's passing was not, it was a total surprise. It was an
Yeah.
accident. It was, yeah, horrible. And it took us a while to kind of just, well, we had to grieve, and then
Yeah.
we just, what are we going to do? Do we want to keep going? What would David want? All those kinds of things came into play. And we ended up going, yeah, we do want to keep going. And because we've all spent a lot of years dedicated to this band.
Yeah.
And I love my band. I really, so I didn't want it to end, and we don't think David would want that either. So we decided to keep going, and then we had a whole process of who could we get, and had a few auditions from a few different people, and Alberto just sort of fit the bill. It was, we said that's the guy.
That's great.
Yeah,
What are the touring plans? Are you going back out on the road with Big Big Train anytime this year?
yeah. We have a few festivals. Lorelei, which is a big, it's called Night of the Prog. It's the one of the big old school prog festivals still around, and it happens to be the last year of it, which is a drag
Oh,
because
wow.
it's an awesome place, an amazing venue, open air venue in Lorelei, which is sort of outside Frankfurt along the
Hmm.
Rhine River. And for some reason, I think this is the case. I heard something, it could be rumor, but like basically they raised the rates on the venue, and it made it just untenable financially for the festival
Oh,
to keep going, which is such a drag because
yeah.
um, it's a 2 3 day festival. Lots of great acts and bands always came through there. So we're the last band on the last night of the festival,
Oh, wow.
which is a trip. And then we're playing a festival called Property in the UK in
Hmm.
August, and then we have about a 2 or 3 week tour in the autumn, late mid September, early October in the UK and a little bit of Europe.
Great. And with all your material, about how long are the sets that you're doing?
For Big Big Train, they're long shows. We usually have a little bit of an intermission. It's probably 2.5 hours.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we got a lot of material, and and we're gonna get to play some of the new stuff off the new record now too. So
Right.
after so many records that this band has made over the years, it's making a set list is hard
Yeah. The more
because
material you
so
rack up. Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot to choose from. But yeah, we try to make a show that people get their money's worth, and then some.
That's awesome. For those who haven't heard the new album, but may be familiar with your previous work, how would you describe it compared to other work that Big Big Train has done?
Oh, well, it still has the vibe of the band. It's still proggy, but it's a little more mainstream at the same time. We have a couple of straight ahead tunes, and it's a little more ballsy, a little bit more
Hmm.
rocky in certain sections. Alberto brings in his vibe and his sensibilities.
Yeah.
So we got a little more grit, but there's plenty of prog for the old school Big Big Train fans for sure, and
Cool.
then some nice straight ahead pieces too, which we've
That's
always
great.
done. It's not like
Yeah.
every song is always in some crazy odd time and stuff like that. We've always had, in my mind, accessible stuff that's straight ahead and people can, non-prog fans can latch onto. So you definitely get that with this record.
Yeah. So folks, that means translated to English, it means you can dance to some of the music without hurting yourself.
Oh yes, for sure.
I want to show another quick clip. This is Big Big Train. The journey continues. Check this out, folks. Another taste of Nick's fabulous drumming. So clean. That's from the 2023 The Journey Continues tour. So while we're here talking about that aspect of you, why drums? Where did that all start? And I know you play many other instruments. You play vibraphone, other percussion, 12-string guitar, you do composing, you do producing. Were drums first before all of that?
Yeah, I don't know why I started. I was the typical thing but I was really young, 4 years old, hitting pots and pans and stuff. And my father bought me a drum kit. Most parents go drums. I'm not buying you drums. They're loud and all this kind of stuff. But some reason I got a drum kit, a 1968 Blue Sparkle Ludwig kit that I kept for many, many years. And
Cool.
I just started playing. There was no drummers in the family, other musicians. I had a grandmother who played cello. My mother played piano. My father sang. My brother played guitar and stuff like that. But yeah, I just started playing drums, and my parents were supportive. They bought me the gear. So
That's
I
awesome.
started.
That means so much. And I come from the same type of family as far as my parents were crazy enough when I saw my older cousin play drums and play the first Led Zeppelin album that came out. I said, I want to play drums. And they said, well, let's get you a practice pad and some lessons first and see if you stick with it. And for my 7th birthday, I got my first drums kit, which was a red sparkle pearl kit, which I still
Nice.
have incorporated into my big blue progressive kit. But having supportive parents makes a difference, and not everybody has that. Not
True.
everybody has people when they wanted to become musicians, and if I may say, especially girls who want to play drums don't always get the support. It's bad enough that, yeah, it's loud and we live in a small house, but you're a girl. There's that uphill thing. But it's great that they supported you. What kind of music were you turned on to at a young age and that you played to and emulated?
Uh, well, at the very beginning, I mean, like the 4, 5, 6 years old, I was totally into the Osmonds.
Cool.
Donny
Fair.
Osmond was like, yeah, I don't know why. And I would say, but my brother is 8 years older. My brother Mike and my sister is 12 years older than me. And
Ah,
basically, I listened to everything they had around. So my brother turned me on to Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and Aerosmith and all those kinds of bands as a kid. And then my sister had a little bit more of the straighter tastes as far as music, but I mean, lots of R&B and things like that. But I kind of grew up a rocker. My very first rock tune I ever learned was The Rover from Physical Graffiti.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was my first rock tune I ever learned. And then I just listened to all the records that they had around the house. So it was from James Taylor to, Black Sabbath.
That's cool. I love talking to people who also grew up in SoCal because I don't know if it was like this elsewhere. I'm guessing it was to a degree. And I'm older than you, but I'm thinking probably when you were young, the AM rock or pop station was still around and it was called 93 KHJ. And when I was young, 6, 7, 8, 9 playing, I would just put on headphones and play whatever came on. And back then in the early 70s, probably through most of the 70s, music was not segregated on radio stations the way it ended up becoming segregated. Right. So I could play to a Bobby Sherman song and then Led Zeppelin, then Steppenwolf, then Neil Diamond, then, all this stuff was mixed together on one station. And I didn't know I was playing the different Sly and the Family Stone, all that stuff, Ohio Players. I just knew I was playing the music. I didn't even learn about genres till I think I was like maybe 12 or 13 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that station? Because you grew up within its airspace.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right about the way the radio was back in those days, for sure.
Yeah. And I think radio is better for that. I mean, it's cool that if you like to listen to a certain genre, you can go there. But I wish there were more stations that were just a tossed salad of stuff for people, especially youngsters, to discover new music that they would never hear if they only listened to this genre or that genre or that genre.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah. And who are some of your biggest influences? I know you mentioned some of the bands that you listened to and played to, but who are some of the first drummers that you really said, I want to learn how he or she is doing that. I want to emulate that technique. Who were some of those people?
Definitely John Bonham. Phil Collins was my favorite drummer as a kid, for sure. I sort of idolized the guy. And once my brother turned me on to Genesis, I dove in deep. There's just something that spoke to me about that. And I just kind of listened to everything that guy ever did back in those days. And so that was a huge influence for me. But then I branched off. I got into Bill Bruford, but then as I got a little bit older and started exploring my own tastes and kind of finding that kind of thing, became a huge Tony Williams fan. And then, lots of Vinnie Colaiuta, and got into a huge like fusion jazz sort of period. Listen to all kinds of people like that. So just tons. I did a little bit of the big band thing and Buddy Rich stuff, but that I didn't really dive really into it deeply until later on in life.
Same here.
I always knew who those guys were, Art Blakey, and just some of the early icons of the instrument, for sure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to rock, and that's kind of where my teenage years took me. And then as I got to my older teenage years, I started doing everything. That's when because I was self-taught until I was 18. Then I did go to music school. And then I just was exploring every style under the sun, whether it was Latin jazz to African rhythms and all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, I was playing in every kind of band I could think of or that would let me join. So I really tried to get well-rounded in that respect.
That's cool. Do you listen to any new music? New for me is like in the last 10 years. Are there any newer, younger drummers you've discovered that you admire?
Oh gosh, there's so many amazing drummers out there in the world right now. It's just, I think there's so many guys that have taken drumming to a whole other just universe as far as speed and dexterity and what you can do on the kit. It's incredible. And the YouTube generation has been great for that.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about social media and all those kinds of things, that has just taken. I mean, there's, in the early days, it was guys like Marco Miniman and Thomas Lang and Virgil Donati and stuff that were taking the speed and double bass and dexterity to, those guys are incredible, right?
Yeah.
And now there's even younger kids like taking it even farther than that.
Yeah, just, absolutely.
Luke
Holland. We had Chris Allison from Pliny on yesterday. That generation of players is doing a whole newish sort of thing. The way that Gospel Chops kind of came out, these
Right.
guys in prog metal are doing something as well that's kind of galvanizing that genre on its own, I think, you know.
Yeah, and it's just amazing what the human body can do.
Yeah.
These guys,
When you're
this
under
is,
50.
oh well, yeah. I think that helps. Young age definitely helps a little bit for sure. But no, there's so many great musicians in the world. It's like never ending, which is
Yeah.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring it on.
Absolutely. Here's a couple comments from Steven Shinder, no relation. Just kidding. That's our producer. Steve says, I know we're not even half a year in, and there are other albums I still need to check out, but I think The Likes of Us is a strong contender for one of my top favorites of the year. Wow. That's
Nice.
great.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
That's awesome. And Steve also says, when I listened to Beneath the Masts, I thought maybe this is my favorite on the album. And then I noticed it was the long epic. So I guess that reinforces the stereotype that longer songs are better. Laugh out loud. Steve was literally born in Ventura Memorial Hospital in California, listening to prog. I'm sure I embarrass him every time I say this, but I sung him to sleep as a baby, singing "Heart of the Sunrise." He used to mimic every guitar move Trevor Rabin made with a toy guitar, watching 9012 Live. I mean, he literally prog flows through him. He's got a question about, speaking of close. How was Cruise to the Edge? Any fun moments come to mind, Nick?
Oh, it's always a good time. If you've never been on it and you like music, and these music cruises are such cool things, you know, for fans and bands to kind of be in these close quarters. It's really cool, and it was an amazing experience for Big Train because we had never done it before. We were one of the headliners, and we got a chance to finally play in front of people that never really seen us. And yeah, it was a really good thing for the band. It was exciting shows, and we're already going back next year, so it was good. For the future of the band and just everything in between. And the gigs were a blast.
Oh, that's great. And what type of set do you put together for that? Is it an abridged cram what we can that makes sense into it set, or are you doing your 2.5 hour show?
No, you don't get the chance to do the whole thing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Because there's so many bands. But we got it's a decent length. I think it was an hour and a half. I think it was 90 minutes we got. A little bit shorter on the pool stage. So you got to condense stuff down and just do the best you can to, appease everybody. You can't, you can't do, but you just try.
Right. Yeah. Tell me about it. Like I said, we have 11 kids, 19 grandkids. There's no pleasing everybody.
That's for sure.
Sometimes I can't please anybody. Right. Let's talk about your gear. You mentioned what you used to record some of the new Mr. Big album, but what is the gear that you generally use to record the most with and or tour the most with?
Well, I play DW. I have my maple mahogany. I got a DW maple mahogany kit. That's what you saw in that little snippet of me during sound check.
Yeah.
Fantastic drums. DW. They spoil me, and they're just incredible pieces of art.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way they put those drums together is second to none, and they just sound great. Now, working at Sweetwater all these years, I was kind of making videos and selling everybody's gear, which is what my job was.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to play so much amazing stuff that I never did prior to working at Sweetwater. I mean, I knew of Sonar drums. Of course, I knew of Tama and all these things that I dabbled in a little bit, but never got to really dive deep into these other brands like Craviotto and stuff like that. There's amazing drums out there in the world from all the manufacturers for sure.
Yeah.
So that was really spoiling to be able to use and get to know the companies, the people behind the drums and stuff like that. But live and in the studio mostly, I play DW, and then I'm playing Sabian cymbals, and I have my own ProMark signature Nick DiVirgilio drumstick now, which is first time in my life that I've had my own actual design signature stick. Which is
that's great.
And I'm using Evans heads and Porter and Davies drum throne, and that's it. I think that's everything for this.
That's awesome. So
and Telefunken microphones. I can't forget Telefunken.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. And are you using DW pedals?
DW pedals, 5000s.
Cool.
All the stuff's great, but 5000s just feel right.
Yeah. I have a 5000 on my jazz kit. Yeah. Cool. Well, this brings us to the Nick Virgilio fun fact segment. So here's my closing question for you, Nick. When you're away from music, when you're not playing drums, when you're not recording, producing, writing, touring, other than spending time with your family, because I know that's a given, is there something you like to do? Do you have a hobby, or is there something you like to do you spend your time doing away from the music industry?
Play golf.
Oh, really? You're a
Yeah.
golfer? Oh,
I was spoiled as a kid. My brother was trying to be a pro for many years early
oh,
on,
wow.
and my father was. This is just this roundabout story, all of it. But my father was in the liquor business, so he sold to. He was at a distribution company, and he sold to bars and restaurants and whoever. And he worked for this big company. And one of his bonuses one year, they bought him a membership to a country club near where we lived. That was his bonus. He had to pay the monthly dues, but didn't have to buy the membership. So I grew up at a golf course.
Oh,
And so
wow.
every day I would play drums. Well, after school, I'd go play golf and then come home and play drums for hours. So I did that every day. So I love the game of golf. I'm a sports geek anyway. I'm a huge baseball fan and all kinds of stuff too. But uh, I love playing golf. I could be out there every day. I just love being out in the green and nature, and you're just competing against yourself, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And it's great. So I love to play golf as much as possible.
that's awesome. Golf is one of those games slash sports that people either get it or they don't. It's very relaxing. It's supposed to be relaxing if you don't get too wound up by the guys up ahead that are moving too slow, but that's another story. But it is one of those, just let me get out and chill and break away from everything. I used to play with my father before he passed a lot.
Okay.
My games, I like to play in the low 60s, but if it gets warmer than that, I'm not playing.
Yeah.
How's your game?
I'll play. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You got to do it. It's like music. You got to do it a lot
Yeah.
to keep the consistency up. So golf is that way for sure. The more you play, the more consistent your game gets.
Have you ever heard the audio book by Alice Cooper, Golf Monster?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
I've
such a
tried. I know his drummer Glenn Sobel pretty well. We've been
yeah,
friends for many
same
years.
here.
And every time Alice comes through wherever I'm at, I try to convince them that they should take me golfing, because Alice plays golf every day.
Every day. Yeah,
It's either
on tour, no matter what.
9 holes on a gig day, 18 holes on off days. And
Yeah.
so one of these years, maybe I'll get the chance to play golf with Alice Cooper, which would be
Yeah, that's cool. He's absolutely like legit pro level golfer.
Oh,
He's been in
he's
major
serious.
tournaments. Yeah.
cool. Oh yeah, he's serious.
That game saved him. Literally saved him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Did you grow up a Lakers fan by any chance, being a SoCal guy?
I did early on during the Magic Johnson's days, but then I switched in the 90s
And now we've got to go. Thank you so much for no, I'm kidding.
I became a Clippers fan in the 90s, back
Oh,
in the Danny Manning days. My wife
Yeah.
I've been married to forever. She's a long diehard Lakers fan,
Oh.
and I've stayed with the Clippers all these years. I'm like a proper Clippers fan, although they're who knows if they'll ever win anything. They spend all the money on the greatest players that just
Yeah.
I don't know, they can't get over.
But that's
But
cool that you're a true fan and you're not
Oh,
a
yeah.
bandwagoner. You still hang in there.
Yeah.
I grew up a Lakers fan all the way back from the 60s. I remember seeing Gail Goodrich, Wilt Chamberlain,
Yeah, some
Happy Harrison,
classics.
all those guys, the Jamal Wilkes days and then the Showtime days and then beyond that. And again, when my dad passed, I just kind of, and now I'm kind of starting to get back into it. I'm still friends with my 6th grade teacher. Hi, Mickey, who lives in the San Fernando Valley. He's 92. I go out there 2-3 times a year to visit with him. And all we do is watch little NFL, which I grew up on early Rams. But my dad also brought me up as a boxing fan. So I saw all the early greats. So Mickey and I watch Lakers, some NFL, and a bunch of boxing. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. Awesome. Nick Virgilio joining us from the road at the legendary Coach House in San Juan Capistrano, California. It's been there for about 200 years. I think
Maybe so.
Yeah, Paul Revere did a poetry reading there, I think, back in the day. And on tour with Mr. Big, great music out with Mr. Big in July and already out from his other band, Big Big Train. Awesome stuff. We'd love to have you on again. After the tour settles down, the dust settles after the festivals, let's have you on again and talk more drumming, music. Maybe we'll dig even deeper into the whole production side of things.
That sounds great. Let's do that for sure.
Awesome. Nick, hang on the line with me after we say goodbye. And folks, thank you so much for following. You can follow us on your favorite platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, or whatever that guy's calling it this week. I can't keep up. Vimeo. And we have a membership site, Drum Talk TV, brilliance.com, which I'll be talking to Nick about making an appearance at. Lots of fun stuff, music-themed game shows, fan Q&A sessions with artists and producers, as well as exclusive live stream concerts. Thanks for following what we do, and we will see you all soonish. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nick.
See you guys. Thanks.